Here's a question almost nobody thinks to ask. The Amish are the symbol of pure, chemical-free, seed-saving farming. Do some of them actually plant genetically modified organisms, GMOs? The answer is yes. And the story behind it reveals something every home gardener needs to know about the seeds in your own garden. The Amish call the outside world the English, and somewhere along the way, English seeds, commercial, corporate, genetically modified seeds, quietly made their way onto Amish land. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to see and what to do about it. When the Amish arrived in Pennsylvania in the 18th century, they came as German-speaking communities fleeing religious persecution in Europe. The settlers they encountered, the dominant culture around them, spoke English. So the Amish drew a simple line. Us and the English, their community and the outside world. That word never left. To this day, the Amish use the term English to refer to all non-Amish people, not based on nationality, but as a cultural marker separating their way of life from the modern world around them. So when an Amish farmer talks about English seeds, he's not discussing seed imports from Britain. He's talking about seeds that come from that world, the commercial system, the corporate agriculture machine, the world of patents, laboratories, and yield optimization. The Amish are not one uniform community. There are dozens of subgroups, Old Order, New Order, Swartz and Truber, each with their own rules about technology, commerce, and engagement with the outside world. Some communities are deeply traditional, others are quietly pragmatic. And pragmatism has a way of opening the gate to English seeds. Here's something that rarely gets discussed openly. Because many Amish farmers don't use the internet, they become easy targets for seed salespeople who arrive at the farm with promises of better yields. As documented by Miller's Biofarm, a salesman could come to an Amish farm, promise better yield, and a struggling farmer will simply believe it, unknowingly signing on to GMOs and pesticides without ever realizing what he agreed to. That's not a rumor. That's the quiet reality underneath the pastoral image most of us carry. If this is already surprising you, hit subscribe, because what's coming next in this video goes even deeper. Let's answer the title question directly, because you came here for the truth. Amish farmers in Illinois have been documented using horses to plant GMO seed, not secretly, not reluctantly, as a straightforward farming decision. Real Amish farmer John Schrock from Arthur, Illinois, recalled the introduction of genetically modified seeds as a, and this is a direct quote, a good thing. It goes further. An Amish farmer was caught on record openly discussing the advantages of Bt corn growing in his fields. Bt corn is genetically engineered corn containing bacterial DNA inserted into its genetics, making the plant toxic to certain insect pests. This farmer saw it as simply the right tool for his operation. Then there's Pennsylvania Amish farmer Dan Diener, who spoke publicly about growing genetically modified tobacco. His reasoning was direct. Amish law doesn't say anything about growing genetically modified tobacco. Nobody wrote the rules anticipating GMOs. The Ordnung, the Amish Code of Conduct, governs electricity and automobiles. It contains no clause about laboratory engineered seed genetics. That gap is exactly where English seeds walked in. The Amish seed dilemma isn't about abandoning tradition. It's about economic pressure meeting an information gap and the seed industry stepping directly into that opening. Now that you know the dilemma is real, you need to understand what exactly these English seeds are, because the seed industry relies on most people never learning the difference. There are three categories, and confusing them is exactly what seed companies count on. Heirloom seeds are varieties grown, saved, and passed down for at least 50 years, sometimes centuries. They are open-pollinated, meaning bred naturally by wind, insects, or human hands. Their genetic traits, taste, color, shape remain stable season after season. You can save them, you can replant them, you own them completely. Hybrid seeds are created by cross-pollinating two parent varieties to produce a specific desirable trait. Key, disease resistance, uniform size, higher yield. Hybrids are not GMO, but save those seeds and replant them, and you get unpredictable results that don't match the parent plant. The dependency is built in by design. GMOs are in a category entirely apart. DNA from other plants or even animals is spliced into the plant's genetic sequence inside a laboratory. That cannot happen in nature, ever. Here's what changes everything. Whether the method is hybridization or genetic modification, the outcome is identical. You cannot save your seeds, you cannot replant without purchasing, and you remain permanently dependent on a supplier. The English seed dilemma isn't just an Amish problem. It's the problem every gardener faces every single season. Before we go further, it's worth understanding what was actually at stake. For most of human agricultural history, seed saving wasn't a hobby. It was simply farming. Every family kept seeds from their best plants, dried them through winter, and planted again in spring. Over generations, those seeds adapted Tuned to local soil, local rainfall, local pest pressure, they became place-specific in a way no commercial catalog ever can replicate. Organizations like Seed Savers Exchange worked specifically with Amish, Mennonite, and Native American communities because these groups preserved heirloom varieties the commercial seed industry allowed to disappear. These weren't just old seeds, they were varieties that survived drought without irrigation, resisted disease without chemicals, and produced reliably where modern hybrids would fail. The Amish paste tomato is the perfect example, an open pollinated variety expressing the same characteristics year after year, saved and replanted across generations without ever needing a seed catalog. That's the tradition English seeds quietly disrupts, not through force, but through the slow arithmetic of economic pressure. And here's the irony, some Amish farmers now view traditional seed-saving methods as the new technology and resist returning to them. Tradition pulls one way, survival pulls the other. Here's where this stops being about the Amish and starts being about your garden. The average seed rack at a garden center gives you almost no useful information. And what it doesn't say is often more important than what it does. Look for F1, that means first generation hybrid. Reliable this season, but save and replant those seeds and you get unpredictable results. You are buying a single season seed, nothing more. Look for open pollinated or OP. This means the variety breeds true year after year. You can save and replant with full confidence. This is the baseline requirement for any self-sufficient garden. Look for heirloom, stable cultivation for at least 50 years. Genetic history, regional adaptation, and flavor that commercial varieties were literally bred out of in favor of shelf life and uniformity. Avoid big box seed racks entirely for heirloom growing. Those racks run almost exclusively on commercial hybrids. The English seed dilemma the Amish faced is the exact same decision you face standing at that rack. The difference is you now have the information to choose deliberately. Many Amish farmers who planted GMO corn simply never did. Not all Amish communities made the same choice, and the ones that didn't are preserving something remarkable. The more conservative subgroups, Old Order and Swartz-and-Truber communities in particular, have largely maintained traditional seed practices. Tomatoes, beans, squash, and corn varieties passed through family lines for generations are still being grown on these farms today. Careful seasonal planting, crop rotation, and livestock manure for fertilization. These aren't romantic choices, they are functional ones, they work. After World War II and into the 1970s, commercial varieties dominated the market and older seeds became nearly impossible to find. Most heirloom varieties that survived did so specifically because of family gardens and small community farms, not commercial agriculture. The communities that held those seeds through the commercial era protected something the rest of the food system was quietly releasing: genetic diversity, regional resilience. Varieties adapted over decades to specific local conditions without chemical inputs. When the last farmers saving heirloom varieties stopped planting them, those varieties are gone. Not archived somewhere, not recoverable, gone. The Amish communities that resisted English seeds weren't just being traditional, they were being careful about something the rest of agriculture moved too fast to notice. So where does this leave you as a home gardener? Exactly at the same fork in the road. Every season you buy seeds, you face the same choice the Amish farmer faces. The convenient option, hybrid seeds bred for uniformity, commercial packets from a big box rack, or stepping outside that system and building something you actually own. Starting with heirloom seeds doesn't require expertise. It requires intention. Here's the practical path. Source from preservation-focused companies. Seed Savers Exchange and Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds are the most respected names in non-GMO, open pollinated seed preservation in North America. Both transparent, both trustworthy. Start with tomatoes and beans. Tomatoes self-pollinate before the flower even opens. Cross-contamination risk is minimal. Beans behave identically. Perfect starting points for any beginner. Save from your best performing plants, not your largest harvest. Over 3 to 4 seasons, those saved seeds adapt specifically to your soil, your climate, your water. No catalog can sell you that. Dry seeds thoroughly before storing. 2 to 3 weeks in a warm, dry spot, then labeled paper envelopes inside a sealed glass jar in a cool, dark space. The Amish farmer who planted GMO corn made a short-term decision. The one who kept his seed box made a generational one. Step back for a moment and look at the bigger picture, because the English seed dilemma isn't contained to Amish country. The numbers here are staggering, and they come straight from the US government. According to the FDA's official agricultural biotechnology data, by 2020, GMO soybeans made up 94% of all soybeans planted in the United States. GMO cotton made up 96% of all cotton planted, and 92% of all corn planted was GMO corn. In a single generation, the seed diversity that American agriculture was built on has been almost entirely replaced by a handful of engineered varieties owned by a handful of corporations. That is the English seed dilemma scaled to a national level, and it means something deeply practical for every gardener watching this. When everyone makes the GMO choice simultaneously, when every farmer from Illinois to Pennsylvania reaches for the commercial seed catalog, the heirloom varieties that once existed as a genetic safety net stop being planted, and varieties that stop being planted disappear, not archived somewhere safely, not recoverable from a laboratory, gone. A food system built on narrow genetic diversity is a fragile one. One resistant disease strain, one new pest, one climate shift, and crops bred for a single specific condition have no genetic flexibility to respond. The Amish farmer in Illinois planting GMO corn with his horse-drawn planter wasn't making a reckless choice. He was making an economic one. But when that becomes the only choice available, when conventional seeds become harder to find than GMO alternatives, the dilemma stops being personal and becomes civilizational. Home gardens matter here more than most people realize. Every heirloom variety you grow and save is one more thread kept in a genetic web that has been quietly unraveling for decades. Here's what this whole story actually comes down to. The Amish didn't fail their seed-saving tradition because they were careless or hypocritical. Some communities drifted toward English seeds because they faced the same pressures every farmer faces: yield anxiety, labor costs, economic survival, without the information tools to push back against a sophisticated sales system. The communities that held their ground understood something the modern food system spent 50 years trying to make us forget. A seed you can save is an asset. A seed you cannot save is a subscription. When you buy hybrid or GMO seeds, you are not buying a plant, you are renting one. The moment you stop repurchasing, the system stops working for you. The Amish farmers who kept their seed boxes, who saved their tomatoes, beans, and squash season after season, built something no salesperson could ever take from them. You can build the same thing. It doesn't require a farm or Amish heritage. It requires a few good heirloom varieties, the discipline to save seeds each season, and the understanding that what you're building has value far beyond this year's harvest. The English seed dilemma is a choice. The Amish didn't all make the same one, neither do you. Here's what we covered. The Amish term English seeds refers to commercial seeds from the outside world. And yes, documented evidence confirms that some Amish farmers do plant GMO crops, including BT corn and genetically modified tobacco. It happened not through ideological shift, but through economic pressure and an information gap the seed industry was built to exploit. The difference between heirloom, hybrid, and GMO seeds isn't complicated once you know it. But the seed industry counts on most people never learning it. If this opened your eyes, subscribe now so you don't miss what we're covering next. Drop a comment below and tell me, did you know the Amish planted GMOs? I'd love to know what surprised you most. Coming up on this channel, we're going underground, revealing the invisible soil network beneath traditional Amish farmland that modern gardens have nearly destroyed, and exactly how to rebuild it before next season. That video is already up and the link is waiting for you. Grow what lasts, save what matters.